Hello everyone. Today, I want to share with you a powerful message from someone who has witnessed more final moments than most of us will ever experience. Her name is Nurse Julie, a hospice nurse and former trauma ICU nurse who has spent years watching the consequences of lifestyle choices, both good and bad. And what she revealed is not meant to scare you, but to guide us toward living more consciously, more safely, and with a deeper awareness of how fragile life really is. Before I continue, I want you to understand why her words carry weight. When someone has sat beside hundreds of people as they take their last breath, when someone has held families as they grieve, when someone has watched patterns repeat over and over, they gain a perspective the rest of us simply don't have. That's why today, we're going through her list of what she would and would never do based on what she has personally seen. And now, I want to let Nurse Julie speak in her own words, just as she originally shared them, with only light adjustments for clarity. According to Nurse Julie, in her own words, "I've seen a lot of death, and because of that, there are certain things I absolutely would and would not do." Now, you might not love hearing this, but it matters. The first thing I would avoid completely is drinking in excess. This whole idea of drinking every day, even if it's only a little bit, used to be pushed as healthy. But now it's been scientifically proven that daily alcohol consumption is not good for your body at all. Let me pause here because what she's saying is huge. Many people still believe a little wine nightly is harmless, even beneficial. But modern research is showing the opposite, and when someone in hospice care says this, it's because they've seen what happens years down the line. And when Nurse Julie talks about alcohol, she's not judging, she's speaking from experience. Nurse Julie further stated, "I know I'm sober, so maybe I'm biased. But even if I weren't sober, I'd still say the same thing. Drinking every day or drinking heavily when you do drink, especially if it's often, is something I would absolutely avoid. Our liver is an incredible organ. It does so much for us, and when it stops working, things get very bad very quickly." She's not exaggerating. The liver isn't just an accessory organ, it's a filter, a chemical processor, a detox powerhouse. When it's damaged, the body suffers in almost every system. I've watched too many people die alcoholic deaths, and by that I mean from liver cirrhosis caused by drinking. It's awful, it's preventable. And if you're watching this thinking, "I hope I'm not drinking too much," the good news is that you can stop. Your liver will regenerate, it will heal, as long as the damage isn't too advanced. So the first thing I would never do is drink heavily across my lifetime, because long-term heavy drinking always leads to liver damage. And trust me, liver damage is something you do not ever want. We need our liver for so much just to function normally. Now, before we go to the next part of her list, I want you to sit with that, because many NDE experiencers and hospice workers say the same thing. Taking care of the body is taking care of the soul's vessel. And the people who regret their choices at the end often wish they had listened sooner. This is only the beginning of what Nurse Julie had to say, but already you can feel the weight of her experience. In this next part, Nurse Julie moves into something that almost everyone has heard warnings about, yet millions still do every day. And the way she explains it is not fear-based, it's experience-based. When someone has watched lungs fail, has listened to people gasp for breath, has held hands during their final shallow inhales, their words are not theoretical, they're first-hand truth. So let's return to Nurse Julie. Number 2. I know everyone hears this and rolls their eyes because it sounds repetitive, but I would not smoke or vape. People say this all the time, but not enough people take it seriously. Fewer people smoke now, but so many people vape, and vaping is just as harmful. Let me pause again because this part is important. Vaping has been marketed like it's harmless, like it's a cleaner option. But from a medical standpoint, and especially from a hospice standpoint, that simply isn't true. The damage may look different, but the outcome is still destructive. Back to Julie, and here's why. Smoking and vaping don't just affect your lungs, they affect your entire cardiovascular system. Even if you don't end up with emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or other lung diseases, you're still likely to develop heart problems. Your arteries and veins get damaged. Your circulation gets affected. There's a whole cascade of issues that come with smoking and vaping. And watching people die from these diseases is not pretty. When she says not pretty, she's being gentle. The reality is heartbreaking. Anyone who has seen someone struggle for air knows exactly what she means. And anyone who hasn't may not fully understand that suffocation isn't only dramatic gasping. Sometimes it's slow, exhausting, mentally terrifying, and emotionally painful. Julie continues, "Now, as a hospice nurse, yes, we can absolutely keep you comfortable. You're not going to suffocate to death if we're taking care of you. We won't let that happen. But that doesn't mean the disease isn't miserable. It doesn't feel good to live every day unable to take a deep breath. So if you're smoking or vaping right now, I wouldn't do it. And I don't do it." This is where I want to highlight something she says next, because it's raw and relatable. According to Nurse Julie, I smoked for many years. It's been about a decade since I quit, so I probably already have some damage. I get where people are coming from, but it's still something I would never choose to do again. This is the kind of vulnerability that makes her message powerful. She's not preaching from a pedestal. She's speaking as someone who lived it, regretted it, and wants to help others avoid what she has seen too many times. Now, before we move on to her third big never do, I want to reiterate something for the audience. The goal of this video isn't moral judgment. It's about seeing patterns at the end of life, the regrets, the avoidable suffering, the things people wish they had known sooner. End-of-life workers carry these lessons so the rest of us don't have to learn them too late. Now let's continue with her story. Now we move into the part of Nurse Julie's story that surprises most people, because it's not about habits like drinking or smoking. It's about something many consider fun or adventurous. And yet, in Julie's experience as both a trauma ICU nurse and a hospice nurse, this is one of the most common causes of tragic, preventable deaths. Let's continue in her own words, and I'll pause to guide you through the meaning behind her words. Nurse Julie, okay. Third, people are not going to like this, and they're going to think you're no fun. But I'm going to talk about this fun thing in a second too. I would not ride an ATV or a four-wheeler or a motorcycle, helmet or no helmet. No bueno. Let me pause here because she's about to get very real. When she says no bueno, she doesn't mean I don't like them. She means she has literally seen the catastrophic consequences of these vehicles. She has cared for people who never walked again, who never woke up, and families who never recovered from the loss. Let's go back to her words, and this is because I was a trauma ICU nurse, not because I was a hospice nurse. You would be shocked at how common accidents are with these vehicles. They are just not safe, period. I've seen so much with this helmet or no helmet, so many deaths, so many accidents, so many everything, that it's just not worth it for me. It's just not worth it. One thing I want to emphasize for the audience. Trauma ICU nurses see life at its most fragile. They see the aftermath of speed, impact, momentum, and bone against pavement. So when Julie says, "It's not worth it," she's talking about injuries that cannot be undone. Now she continues, "I would even go as far as bicycling. I would go on a bike, but I'd always wear a helmet. But even bicycling on the road is really dangerous." I want to pause again to explain something important. She's not saying never enjoy life. She's saying, if you've seen what she's seen, if you've witnessed the aftermath, you think differently about fun. Fun doesn't have to cost your life. Fun doesn't have to risk your spine, your skull, or your future. And she addresses this exact pushback next. I know it sounds like no fun, and that's the part I want to get to. Whenever I make videos like this, people go on and on about how they'd rather live than have no fun. It sounds like I'm being a naysayer to everything fun. But I don't do these things, and I still have a lot of fun. Here's where I want to highlight something crucial for the viewers. Julie isn't anti-fun. She's anti-regret. She's anti-heartbreak. She's my patient would still be alive if not for this one avoidable choice. And then she explains beautifully why her idea of fun changed, in Nurse Julie words. I can tell you, especially with drinking, people think you have to drink to have fun, and I used to be one of those people. But now I know that is not true. Being present in the moment is far more fun than anything. Just being present in the moment is the most fun you can ever have. And I feel like alcohol sometimes pulls you out of the present moment. That's why I always say I have more fun now that I'm sober than I ever did before. This part, to me, is powerful. So many people think fun requires danger or altered states, but those ideas come from culture, not truth. Julie is offering something deeper. Real joy, real presence, real life. She ends this section by summarizing her non-negotiables. According to Nurse Julie, so I could add a ton more things to the what not to do list because of my trauma nursing experience, but I'm going to keep the list simple. I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't smoke, I wouldn't ride ATVs or motorcycles. Now, before we transition into the next section, the things she would do because of what she has witnessed at the end of life, I want the audience to take a moment to absorb the value of this wisdom. These are not random opinions. These are distilled lessons gathered from thousands of life and death moments. This is the kind of insight people usually only learn through tragedy, and Nurse Julie is sharing it so the rest of us don't have to. Now we move into what I consider the most important part of Nurse Julie's message. Not the warnings, but the guidance. After years of watching people enter the final chapter of their lives, after witnessing regrets, panic, acceptance, peace, and everything in between, she has formed a clear vision of what truly matters long before the end arrives. Let's continue in her own words, and as always, I'll pause to help interpret the deeper meaning behind her words. In Nurse Julie words, "Here are the things I would do because I've seen a lot of death. I would always go yearly to a doctor to get blood work and a physical checkup on how I'm doing. Don't avoid the doctor." Let me stop here for a moment because this is surprisingly common. People avoid the doctor because they feel fine, or they're afraid of bad news, or they think it's unnecessary. But as Julie has seen, many serious illnesses don't show symptoms until they're advanced. Checkups aren't about fear, they're about prevention. Back to her words. Doctors don't have all the answers. Yes, they can miss things, and sometimes you feel totally fine, so you think, why would I go? But every year, go to the doctor, get a checkup, get your blood pressure checked, get blood work done. It's a good thing to do. Stay up on your health. This is important because at the end of life, the people who suffer the most emotionally are often those who waited until it was too late. The ones who say, if only I had gone sooner. Julie then moves into one of the most alarming red flags she has witnessed. The second thing I would always do is if I had unintentional weight loss. Unintentional weight loss. If you suddenly drop 10 pounds, I know some people will be like, woohoo. No, there's a reason you're losing weight without trying. You have to figure it out. Audience, this is a major point. Weight loss without explanation is one of the biggest early signals of some of the hardest to detect cancers. And Julie isn't exaggerating. This is something nurses and doctors see all the time in late-stage diagnoses. She continues, if I ever lost 10 to 15 pounds without trying, I would 100% go to the doctor. I would demand blood work. And honestly, I might even be the crazy one who says, I want a PET scan and I'll pay out of pocket. Yes, that's excessive, so they might not do it right away. Let me pause again because she's about to explain why she'd go to that extreme. According to Nurse Julie, unintentional weight loss is a huge indicator of cancers that are hard to detect. Sometimes you need a PET scan to find them. So yeah, it might be excessive to say I'd pay out of pocket for a PET scan or CT scan, but I actually might if I had weird symptoms like unexplained weight loss, general fatigue. That could mean something serious, and I might pay out of pocket because PET scans diagnose cancers that are hard to find. Notice how she says this calmly but firmly. As someone who has watched people discover their diagnosis too late, this is not paranoia. It's informed awareness. Now she shifts into something more emotional and psychological, something that affects the end of life more than most people realize. Nurse Julie further stated, other things I would do, and what I'm already working on now as a hospice nurse, learning to be flexible, learning to be okay with change. Let me pause again because this part is profound. At the end of life, control fades, independence fades, mobility fades. And for people who cling to control, the struggle becomes emotional, not just physical. Julie continues, Nurse Julie, at the end of life, you're going to experience tons of change, and you won't have much control at times. That's really, really hard, especially for people who are fiercely independent, who don't like asking for help, and who don't like change. Then she reveals something personal. According to Nurse Julie in her own words, I know that about myself. So I'm practicing now, practicing change, practicing asking for help, practicing being flexible, being okay with being uncomfortable when things aren't going how I want. I'm totally aware of it and I'm constantly working on it because I know if I die from a slower progressive illness, not a sudden death, I will need those skills. Audience, this is incredibly self-aware. People think preparing for death is about paperwork, but emotionally, the biggest preparation is learning how to let others help you, how to release control, how to soften rather than resist. She continues, I will need to know how to be flexible, how to ask for help, how to be less independent. I will need those skills. So I'm working on that. This is something rarely discussed, yet essential. And she's not done yet. Now she moves into the practical skill that causes the most problems at the end of life. According to Nurse Julie, in her own words, I'm also working on not putting things off. So many people at the end of life run into problems because they keep pushing things down the line. I'll get my will done later. It's not time to fill that out. I don't need help yet. I don't need that hospital bed yet. They keep pushing things down the line. Let me pause here because this next part is something every family should hear. According to Nurse Julie in her own words, and when you do that, you create a lot of problems in emergency situations. Suddenly, boom, you can't get out of bed. And now you're scrambling to get a hospital bed delivered, but it's the weekend and you can't do it. This scenario happens constantly. It creates unnecessary stress, fear, and chaos. Her advice is simple, Nurse Julie, so I practice making decisions early. I think ahead. If I know I might need something, I take care of it now. Practicing that now will help me when the time comes. This wisdom is gold. It spares suffering for both the patient and the family. Now we move into one of the most profound parts of Nurse Julie's message. The emotional, relational, and spiritual preparation she has seen make the biggest difference in how peacefully someone transitions at the end of life. This isn't about medicine, scans, or habits anymore. This is about the human heart. Let's continue in her own words. Nurse Julie, I also focus on my relationships, really working on them now. Because at the end of life, your relationships matter more than anything else. Your connections, your unfinished business, your unresolved emotions, these are the things that make dying peaceful or painful. Let me pause here, because this is one of the strongest themes hospice workers talk about. People don't regret not working more hours. They regret broken relationships, unspoken apologies, or words they waited too long to say. Julie continues, I don't want to get to the end of my life and realize I've let resentment build up, or that I never forgave someone, or that I'm leaving behind tension I never tried to resolve. So I work on that now. I try to communicate honestly. I try to tell people how I feel. I try to forgive quicker. What she says next is incredibly important, Nurse Julie. And that doesn't mean keeping toxic people in your life. That's not what I'm saying. You can forgive and still create distance. But I don't want my heart to be hard when I get to the end. I want peace. I want softness. This is something that shows up again and again in hospice. People pass more peacefully when their emotional world is uncluttered. Then she shifts into something deeper, something almost spiritual in tone. Nurse Julie, I also try to stay present. The people who have the hardest time at the end of life are the ones who never allowed themselves to slow down or just be. The ones who are always busy, always distracted, always future-focused. Let me pause again because her next line is powerful. I don't want my first time practicing presence to be when I'm dying. That hits hard, she continues. So I practice now. I try to sit in silence sometimes. I try to enjoy the moment I'm in. I try to feel grateful for little things. I try to be aware of my body, my breath, my surroundings. Because that skill, presence, is one of the most important things you can have when you reach the end. Now, this next part is something almost nobody talks about, but hospice nurses see it every day. At the end of life, your world gets very small. It becomes your bed, your room, the people around you, and your inner world. So if you don't know how to be with yourself, it can feel scary. Take a moment and let that land, she continues. So I'm working on that now too. Being okay with quiet, with slowing down, with being still. Because one day, whether I like it or not, life will slow down for me, and I want to meet that moment prepared, not terrified. Now she moves into something deeply practical and something that causes so much pain for families when it's avoided. I also work on talking openly about death. People think talking about death makes it happen. It doesn't. It makes it easier. It makes it less scary. It prepares everyone. Let me pause here because this is key. Families often fall apart at the end because no one talked about what the person wanted. Julie explains exactly why. Nurse Julie, when you don't talk about death, your family doesn't know your wishes. They don't know if you want CPR. They don't know if you want to die at home. They don't know what kind of funeral you want. And that leaves them panicking and making decisions under extreme stress. Then she says something incredibly grounding. I don't want to leave my loved ones with confusion. I want everything to be clear. So I talk about it. I talk about my preferences. I talk about what matters to me. There's a quiet strength in that. It's not morbid. It's compassionate. And finally, she closes with what might be the most important piece of advice of all. Practical, financial, and foundational. Nurse Julie. And the last thing, I save money. I try to be financially stable because illness is expensive, dying is expensive, unexpected things happen, and the people who struggle the most are the ones who weren't prepared. So I try to take care of future me. I try to take care of the people I'll leave behind. Let me pause for a final reflection here. Everything Julie has said is about reducing future suffering, her own and her loved ones. As a hospice nurse, she has seen what happens when people prepare and when people don't. Her message is simple, powerful, and deeply human. Live now in a way that your future self will thank you for, and your loved ones will find peace in. As we move toward the close of her story, Julie makes it clear that there are more things she would never do based on what she has seen in both trauma and end-of-life care. And trust me, these next examples hit hard because they come from real tragedies she has personally witnessed. According to Nurse Julie in her own words, I wouldn't do guns. If I absolutely had to, maybe one for protection, but I would have to be like, I would have to have all of the things. I would have to know exactly how to use it. It wouldn't be loaded. It would be secured in a place where no one could get it. I mean, all of the things, because I've just seen so much trauma around guns. And let me pause here for my audience, because what she's saying isn't political, it's practical. It's based on what she's seen with her own eyes. Accidental shootings, mishandling, children accessing weapons, sudden tragedies that could never be undone. Then she moves to something newer, something many people think is harmless, but it absolutely is not. Nurse Julie. The e-bikes, the e-scooters, I would never be on one, and I certainly wouldn't let my children on them because I've seen so many collarbones broken, head injuries, back injuries, deaths. Don't get me started. This is one of those comments where every ER and trauma worker nods their head. These devices look fun until they aren't. Then she emphasizes a rule that should be obvious but still kills thousands of people every year. Nurse Julie, drinking and driving. I know that sounds obvious, and I think many people are getting smarter these days to not drink and drive, but never drink and drive. Ever. Ever. Then she gives a chilling story from her very first day in medicine. As a nursing student, the very first patient I ever saw was a dead man who was in a drunk driving accident. He was the drunk one, and I had to clean up his body to show his wife, do not drink and drive. Let that settle for a moment. That was her first day. That shapes you. And now she brings up something that almost everyone is guilty of. And this is a hard one that I actually haven't fully learned my lesson on yet. So I can't say I don't fully do it, but your phone and driving. Then she mentions her friend Lauren, the mortician. Nurse Julie. My friend Lauren, the mortician, has things she would never do because she's a mortician. And her number one thing is using the phone and driving because she's seen so many people die because they were on their phone while driving. And then Julie becomes completely honest about her own habits, which makes her message even more relatable. I have to be honest. I still do it. I still do it. Not all the time and not like crazy, but I do it. She says, no, you put your phone in the glove compartment and you do not touch that phone while you're driving. And finally, she closes with a mix of humor, seriousness, and love. Okay, now I'm done. And I really mean it when I say I know I'm making jokes, but I really do mean it. And I really do mean that you cannot do these things and still live a very fun and fulfilled life, because I feel like I'm living proof. I don't do these things and I still have a very fun and fulfilled life. And that right there is the heart of her message. Not fear, not judgment, not shame, but wisdom, earned through witnessing thousands of lives end peacefully or painfully, depending on the choices made, long before that day arrived. These are the kinds of stories people never forget. And that brings us to the end of Nurse Julie's powerful message, a message shaped not by fear, not by theory, but by years of witnessing what most people never see: the final moments of life, the regrets people carry, and the consequences of choices that seemed small at the time, but added up in the end. Her honesty, her vulnerability, and her willingness to share what she has learned from the bedside, from trauma units to hospice rooms, is something rare. And her message is simple: life is fragile, life is precious, and the way we live now shapes the way we leave later. What I love about Nurse Julie's perspective is that it's not doom and gloom. It's not judgment. It's real-life experience, translated into wisdom the rest of us can use while there's still time to change something, even something small. She didn't share these things to restrict life. She shared them because she's seen how quickly life can be taken away. So if any part of her message made you pause, if any part made you reflect, or if any part hit a little too close to home, know that it is never too late to make a shift. Never too late to choose a healthier path. Never too late to protect your future self. And remember what she said: you can avoid these risks and still live a full, joyful, amazing life. She's living proof of that. If this video opened your eyes, helped you reflect, or taught you something new, then please take a moment right now to give this video a like, leave a comment sharing what part hit you the hardest, subscribe for more real end-of-life stories, NDE accounts, and lessons from those who have crossed the threshold and come back with wisdom.